be. Hang on, started recording.
All right, so we're recording another short episode. I guess this would be a good catch-up episode. I have a funny little story. So I knew who Machine Gun Kelly the gangster was, but I did not know that there was some white kid covered in tattoos who was going by Machine Gun Kelly. And here's the funny thing. I guess when you get married and you have kids and stuff, you get into like a time capsule, and that's where all these jokes about dads and their clothes and their dancing comes from. But I got a YouTube short where this guy named Fix with a PH was being compared to MGK instead of Eminem. So I'm like, what is MGK? This is last night. So I do a little search, and this kid had a whole rap career that rose, and then he got just infamous enough over the internet to get the irritation of Eminem. So this is like the real Slim Shady and Stan that comes to life. This kid idolized Eminem, pissed off Eminem. Eminem is kind of sensitive though. And then Eminem destroyed his career with a song called Kill Shot, which was a reaction to a song this kid called Rap Devil. So he was out there trying to get Eminem's attention because Eminem made the song Rap God, which is by far the Mount Everest at this point. I mean, my personal favorite rap song of all time is Notorious Thugs, but Rap God is something else. It's lyrically a masterpiece that cannot be really beaten. Lots of people have tried. Dax came out with like a 13-minute Rap God Part 2, but it's just something else to hear, to see. Even the clean version. If you haven't heard it, fellas, check it out, Rap God. So that came out a while ago. And so this kid had made Rap Devil, and Eminem just came out with it. Afterwards came out with a song. It was about 5 years ago, almost 6 now. Like Fortnite, OG days. This song is called Kill Shot. He just absolutely wrecks this kid's career. Kid then goes into rock and roll music and starts wearing high heels. I mean, it's or something called, punk pop, whatever that is. It's like a unholy marriage of things if I've ever heard of it. But I just thought it was the most marvelous thing about our reality, that an entire thing could come to exist, and also you get like sucked in and you don't even notice, and your awareness like snaps in if you keep paying attention. A lot of people just give up. They don't ever pay attention no more. I was thinking about it. I'm like, if somebody asked me what generation I am, I'm Generation XY. Because I'm Generation Y, but I feel like Generation X. But I think it's funny because I say I'm Generation XY because I still remember a man isn't a woman. It's so this new Eminem song Houdini is going crazy. It's blowing up all over the place. He has a new album coming out. I had the AI do a research. This Machine Gun Kelly kid was claiming he'd sold 20 million albums. He sold 2. Eminem has sold 315 million units of various LPs and singles and all that kind of stuff. I mean, he's a legendary artist. He's up there in terms of units sold. He's up there with freaking Elton John, Elvis, Michael Jackson, like Dolly Parton, these levels that just nobody has done, maybe Taylor Swift. And it's just kind of a marvelous thing about I don't know if I want to call it simulation or what you want to call it. It made me do a prayer that then snapped me in phase. And then I was giving myself this lecture, but I could feel me talking to my brain because my brain for the last few days has been having this mortality experience and is like really struggling with the eternal being aspect of it all, right? And I think that's pretty interesting on account of the research I've been doing, all the bots I've been creating, and the research I've been working on, the equation for karma, meeting destiny, that kind of stuff, the equation for the ether. I just think that's all very fascinating. And I think that this is a good day for people to phase in if they know how, and get in touch with their eternal selves, so that they stop feeling the anxiety and the depression, so they stop feeling this mortal coil holds them forever. When in fact, it's just that you have a machine around you that's aging because of the changes. Like your perception of time, that's not real. There's no actual time. There's flux. And flux requires time in order to be measured. But there's no actual time. If you ever do a trance or samadhi or anything like that, there's no time. You can tell that there's no time. What there is perpetual changes and rearrangement. And that's funny because this Brian Green video came up last night. I've been doing YouTube shorts with my insomnia, And Brian Green, this guy who's now irrelevant because superstring theory, supersymmetry all failed, is busy trying to convince us that there might be more than one Big Bang, or it might be because we're asking a question that isn't correct. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, you're asking if the Big Bang happened after it's already been shown to not have happened, or your understanding of it is not accurate, or however you want to put that. But all I can come back to is the cosmic rearrangement, the continuous rearrangement eternally. That is like the only way that everything makes sense. And then, the perception of something being created being the best evidence for a creator. And that creator is consciousness itself at the most root fundamental level. Consciousness, quote, creates, but it's not really creating, it's cognizing. It's not making it new, it's cognizing the self-emergent properties that the consciousness intricately designed, because it needed a way to interpret atomic mass energies that are being rearranged, right? And for me to actually know that that's a car moving that way requires a change. I need to be able to study it. I need to be able to examine it. And when we examine it, it changes. And our what we look for changes the experiment and changes the outcomes. And all these are indications. And case in point, with the Eminem thing coming out, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I started listening to more Eminem songs and rewatched 8 Mile with my son 2 weeks ago. And I just synced up, just boom, out comes a bunch of Eminem stuff, which some of us suspected anyway, because he was the one of the final events for Fortnite in recent months. But that's neither here nor there. It's just it felt like quote time for him to make another comeback and show why. It's like this is a chance where we're all getting, it's like Michael Jordan playing or whatever, where you see the gold standard and people miss it. And then they get embroiled in looking at the silver and bronze standard, or as I say in the NBA, Kobe Bryant was the silver, and then we had the LeBrons. So this new kid, Anthony Edwards, at best could be brass, look like gold, like Michael Jordan, but he's not gold. It's fascinating. It's really, really interesting to see revelations that aren't, of course, biblical revelations, although that might be happening too. Which then would make you wonder, if they were happening, what were those guys tripping on? I mean, were they having a Delphi, the Oracle of Delphi experience, seeing revelations happen? Or are we really in a simulation or a triple matrix that has been set like a clock winding down to a specific time or event? Or is that just a delusion, just like, the world would end in 2012 was a delusion of so many people? I mean, personally, I knew it wouldn't end in 2012, but a lot of people were convinced. So these are interesting questions about our reality. I think that one could explore alchemy and truth through the first world, through the shallow, the mundane, the ordinary. I noticed that a lot of people make the best careers out of just the mundane and ordinary, and it's much harder to make a career like your Sadhguru or the Dalai Lama or something. In the upper worlds, it's a lot harder to make that career. Whereas you can make a career and become famous or whatever it is that the soul is always seeking, out of its eternal, out of its mortal existence. You can get that experience through the mundane lens. You don't have to be ascended in any way. But if you are, and then you go back and you look at this stuff, when you look at Tom Brady, it's just a marvel. When I was a kid, everybody knew Joe Montana was the greatest. The joke, people still joke about it in the Tom Brady roast. They were joking Joe Montana's the greatest in the beginning. But then this gold standard arises, and Tom Brady is unassailably the greatest. He's not like LeBron James here. We're talking literally, there's no argument. And you get to watch that happen, and you said you know that solipsism isn't correct, but you're still wondering, what is this teaching me? What is this reality showing me? Why do certain things repeat in patterns? What is it that keeps, what keeps a nerd out of the range of dating a supermodel, like that kind of thing? Obviously, there's a vibrational change between the DNAs, but why does that work? Why did the Hindus consider mixing of the castes to be a great sin? Did they know something about how DNA is supposed to interact? Because it technically all interacts equally. But is there something that's in the DNA of people who are in the lower caste or lower class? I mean, I got these people that come in and they're pretty enough, but they have such hard lives. Like, what's in their DNA that leads to that? And I guess that gets me back to the junk DNA karma theory that we've proposed, or I proposed, or however we want to say that. It's so funny because Jonathan's always told me that, all these people deserve all this credit, but when I look around, I'm doing all this work and I've never seen anybody do a lot of the kinds of stuff that I'm talking about. So anyways, I'll turn it over. I'm about to hit my Wi-Fi. React to any of it, all of it, change, whatever makes you think of, I'm cool with.
Well, I certainly think that consciousness is revealing facets of existence that we haven't been previously really aware of. We haven't understood how certain social systems adhere to build and then adhere, and what makes these things happen. Now, the more information we seem to get, take for example Hollywood, which has run the Western world really in terms of what it's meant to think of, believe, dream, issues, important issues that globalists are always presented first to Hollywood. All sorts of deep state government systems can be traced back to, well, it's all the media is massive in Hollywood. Now let's get to Hollywood. You've got lots of people who good-looking young people who go there, want to be an actor. Got to go around doing these auditions, but Christ knows what that's like. I suppose they've got to have some talent in dancing or something, or singing maybe, get a bit further. But the thing is, the contracts don't really come until they get involved in the social circles. And of course, this is when parties are attended and people get to meet each other and maybe have some drugs together, and maybe there's some women knocking her out for the boys and whatever, Of course, most of the music industry, a lot of it's a racket for moving drugs. And I've got sort of some exposure to that world from 40 years ago. I didn't really get involved too much, to be honest. I got out of there. But anyway,
let's put a pause right there and start talking about drugs, because obviously most of us by far would agree that there are drugs that are destructive. They're, synthetic man-made poisons that have these effects. They draw people in and they have basically the same effect every time, especially the ones that cause the teeth to rot. But then there are drugs where when you take them, they give you the sensation that the real drug is life, that you become in tune with the idea that you are not the real, but that God is the real. And those drugs alter consciousness. They actually all have connections through receptors. And so that makes one wonder, why in the world do we have those receptors? Like, why do we have nicotinic receptors and cannabinoid receptors and all that, if we're not meant to ingest natural substances that make us aware of a greater reality? I mean, it's a very good question, because the question beggars the belief that, like, look, I see it as like a radio tuner, like everything, sugar, caffeine, whatever it is, and that you can sample it and it'll just change your frequency. And so it makes you wonder, like, do certain chemicals expose you to the source code that's all around us? If that source code is,
yes, they do. We know for a fact that the human body was designed to experience hundreds and hundreds of different types of fruit, and each of these fruits had a different medical or physical property, and so people, I think, were walking around in a semi-stoned state most of the time, just munching away on all these different psychotropic fruits, and I think now, if you look at people's diets, they're on such a limited range of input that we're not necessarily feeding our bodies the way our bodies were meant to, the natural way. That's my point with that, really. Go on, Ramon, sorry.
I agree. We're definitely. I meet people I just think about this all the time. I think there are all these people who don't react. They react like a machine. Like, they react, quote, normal. But I'm like, when did becoming passive about shit that is not good? When did becoming accepting disloyalty as a standard? When did becoming apathetic about justice become, quote, normal? Like, how do you had to lose something in order to get that way? Now I get recording Karens, and like, they're demanding to see the manager because they're privileged, they're mad, they don't even know why they're mad. Feminism has messed them up. They don't know how to just behave in society. I totally get that. But there are things that happen that are very upsetting. And like, forget just people just being selfish because they don't want to get kicked off the plane when the other guy gets kicked off the plane. I saw that, but I'm talking about like real situations where, if you were in that situation, you'd be mad too. But people are acting like it's normal to just accept a situation that is dehumanizing, right? And so they don't have a flare of that human spirit in them. And I wonder, like, is it possible? I mean, if the spirit is ethereal, then obviously it's possible to kind of like separate it from a person. But is there a way to code in and snatch people's spirits right out of snatch the human spirit? What makes us unique and different than a dog or a cat? Turn us all into not just slaves, but pets. I mean, it's bad enough if you're a slave, but you can be a slave. It's like Les Miserables or Amistad shows you can be a slave and still be you and still be semi-divine. But if you are a pet of some kind of Hollywood puppet master or an Epstein or whatever, or a pet of the media, because everything they say you believe. Like they say the world's going to end in 12 years because of global warming. Oh, it's going to end, and it's just going to. How is it going to end? What are you talking about? I mean, where is their spirit going? How is it being removed? I've had people come in and they tell me that, like, I look at people's eyes and I just don't see the human anymore. And I go, I know exactly what they're talking about. It's more than just being shallow because you work a drive-through and you use that fake voice. Hi, welcome to McDonald's. How may I help you? You know, that kind of fake, like that. That's an old joke about people who are just fake. I'm talking about real. Like, they really, who are they? Where are they? Where'd they go? That kind of thing. And it makes me wonder how it technically works and how that connects back to what Nick is talking about. If people don't eat a variety of foods and they don't sample, then their consciousness maybe it can't play. Maybe they're just a 3-string banjo after that. Like, they just can't, they don't have the range. They're not in touch with every part of themselves. And maybe they're severed. Maybe there's part of them that's in a different reality, a different timeline where, you know, the Fruit of the Loom underwear logo still has the cornucopia on it. I don't know. I have no idea. I really don't know. I'm very open to, you know, what direction the triple matrix hypothesis will take after its initial, you know, the groundwork that has been laid about the organo-respiratory atomic mass energy and the geometric shapes and the responsiveness, the fractalian and the layers of light that you can see when they construct this reality, but they're all over top of one another, and you can't really separate them. So it's very difficult to actually do any kind of testing. I mean, I did my unique power tope experiment with it, but other than that, I have no idea how to go forward with that, except for making philosophical math, which could be nothing more than the mental masturbation of the AI and me. You know, like, it's completely possible. You know, how would we go forward with this? Well, one thing I do know is that it is a serious problem. It's if a person dehumanizes because they saw a war and they got the 1,000-yard stare, you know, that's one thing. But if they've not experienced that and they're stripped of that spirit, we have a problem, because who knows what could fill that vessel with a series of beliefs that are not compatible with civilization that functions as we know it. And I know that there's probably a bajillion civilization styles, and ours is not the right one because it's sick. But what we know works is things like justice and honor and loyalty and telling the truth, and punishing the right kind in justice system. You know, you go for what is the intent, and is there a real victim? You know, that kind of stuff, common law stuff, right? And I do worry for the future of humanity if we can't figure out what being human is. You know, if people become a machine, if they become a social media algorithm, or they become a pet of a greater force than they are, that can overwrite their code, or however it works, if it changes their entanglements. That might be how all it is changing your entanglements. Maybe I can, I can mess up Andy's whole life. Maybe that's what black magic always was, is I can mess up Andy's whole life by just changing his entanglements. I don't know. I've seen it happen. I've seen that exact thing happen, but, you know, watching one human poison another human, that makes me more think not that the first person lost their humanity, but that they have a demon. You know, like, I don't know how you do that to somebody, especially if you used to consider them a best friend. I've seen that happen. But it's another thing when they're a shell of what they were, and that's what concerns me. If they got demons, I can respect that, because they have to keep that in check, right? They're more human than human kind of situation. But if you are empty, I don't know what to do with that. I don't know what to do with people. I don't even want to be around those people. They don't believe in anything. They don't stand for anything. They don't have loyalty to anyone. They don't like themselves, let alone anyone else. And that's what concerns me a lot. You know, when I look at the situation of consciousness. Anyways, Nick, that's what your brew discussion just like made me think about is all the people that aren't sampling everything that creates the full human inside of them.
Yeah, that's a good point, Ramon, on that. Now, there's a fair bit being said there. I think one of the big things, like Nick hit on, was about how we now consume so much different foods, technically out of season, so we're creating a chemical imbalance within our own bodies. Right? Then we crave for some of these things through it. There was something else I was going to mention. Can't remember what it was now. Oh, that's right, Nick. I was just listening to that Richard Vobes, and he was talking about where in part of England there's whole areas being put under solar panels, right, and everything about it. And at the end of it, I put down at the bottom just for comment. Well, feudalism's never gone. It's there. It's exactly there today. You know, in a way, Ramon, so many things haven't really changed, right? And when you look at consciousness, also, are we now also in a bit of a, for want of a better word, a bit of a time warp because we lost that time through that lockdown and it messed so many things up, right? So I'll go back to the conversation the other night about 1 times 1, and I reckon Nick's answer was brilliant when he said, if we go down that path, we're going to have some real weird geometrics, right? And maybe there is something in that.
No, just totally faulty geometries. Just completely meaningless crap.
I understand that, Nick. I understand that. I understand what you're saying in that it doesn't, you know, from where we sit, there's no meaning in it, right?
Yeah.
But in someone else's life, could they develop meaning in it? That, you know, if you can
Yeah,
picture
of
what
course,
I'm saying.
of course. That Terence Howard's got many fans. They're saying, well, maybe he is, maybe he has got the key. They don't know enough about it. There's any of the subjects to make a judgment, and there hasn't been enough information in part to make a judgment. Now, what I'm trying to get to, and yes, of course, you know, the ethos of the world is changed. People don't care about the law and what's right and wrong. All they need to do is make money. How they make money is to join a gang. The gang, then they work their way up through this gang. Some get to the top, some don't make it. In order to get in to do things in the gang, they've got to do little favours. These millionaire Hollywood contracts don't come along for nothing. You know, you don't just say, oh, that's a handsome man, let's offer him £8 million for a movie. You know, it just doesn't work like that. So anyway, what happens then is these alliances are made, forged one way or another, and dirty little habits. You've got to do this and that to get in the gang, and of course, a lot of it involves perverted sex, and then in comes the blackmail. So these people in their lust for money and maybe fame are more entrapped than any normal person. They're entwined in a pit of shit. You know, there's thousands of them trying to get in the job, so they've got to keep producing, and like all these stars. It's the royalties that are left behind, which is the prize for the predators, you know, and that's why they all die early of one thing or another. And so it just looks like that a small amount of the dust that obscures this from the public is getting removed now, and but these systems, these mafiosa type systems, they're completely riddled throughout every system in the country. People are on the take. They're not doing the job. They're just trying to get to the top of their tree, and that implies a lot of bullying and gangsterism, and that's what that's this relentless thirst for success. That's where it's leading us. Annihilation. That's it.
Yeah, well, going to that, I read these books, and it'd been nearly 20 years ago, and they were done by a fellow who brought biodynamics to Australia. And he'd done a lot of work and research, and it was all that Steiner, a lot of, right? And Ramon, I think, touched on that earlier when he talked about the DNA and, why some people are at this class and others are at another class. And I also think that, yes, to get into that, what we'll call leadership class, that takes generations to develop. You can't just pluck somebody out of a desert and have them sort of right up the top, as a leader in a short time. It doesn't. And that was in these books about how that system worked. And when Ramon touched on that, or it came back to me of that. And so what you've got with your Hollywoods and that is, for some reason or whatever, they mess that system up. So then you have people that are, well, totally really unsuitable for the position, getting into those high positions. And then we see what we're talking about a lot now, where you're getting all these messes because of that. So I remember when the Queen died, and different people making judgments. But you've got to remember, their DNA has been developing through that system, even though they use us as their fodder for times. Their DNA has developed over, like the millennium. We can trace it back easy to the Romans and probably before. So I think, at the end of the day, it comes down to it's generational. You have to look at, like, you're not going to go and pick up, say, a culture that's, say, like our Aboriginals were, and in 1 or 2 generations have them living like we do, because it's not natural to them. Their whole systems have to change over time.
Yes, no chance. There's no chance.
Yeah, So, and like going back to the drugs, well, I suppose they're a quick, easy way, but what we're seeing over the last, especially since probably, there were some horrible ones in the 30s too, from what I could understand, is that, humans sort of play with them at the start to see where it takes them. And I think most of the time, their intention when they first start using them is for better sex, and then it just grinds on from there. So it all comes back to the old S word.
I think a lot of it does, but also you see, you get these stories of these black magic rituals and hurting kids and all this sort of thing, and it's all part of these sinister gangs that you've got to, they're probably that drugged up, and they're almost, I suppose they lose their inhibitions and then do despicable stuff. But once having done that, they're locked into that group. They're basically owned. They're owned, and they will be sold as well. So it's a really horrible, cutthroat, filthy machine. And the leaders topple every 20 years. You know, it's who was this one before Puff Daddy? Who was it? I can't remember. I can't remember the one. He toppled in about 98, something like that. I can't remember who it is now. Who was running the gang then? But of course, you know, the parties still go on. The network's still there. Someone else just bubbles to the top and carries on with the, you know, they all fight over the money, and then some other next year, someone else will bubble to the top and have exactly the same parties with exactly the same people there doing exactly the same dirty shit, you know. So yeah, it is a big problem that, you know, the people we look up to are normally pretty badly behaved individuals who've sold the soul. They've done it just to get the fame and money, and you know, look how they wind up. Not too happy, most of them. But yeah, so I think these unnatural forms do pop up, but you know, it's the same as the war machine. What good is it to anyone apart from a few people who make a lot of money out of it?
Well, Nick, can I throw this one? So going back a couple of months ago in Australia, we had Taylor Swift out here.
Yeah.
Right? Did you know she actually stopped the economy going into recession? Right? Now, what is it? So getting back to Ramon's earlier thing, what is it that makes or creates the attractiveness of her to so many people? You know, he talks about, like I remember when we were young, Michael Jackson. You know, they built him up and that, and then all of a sudden, you know, like he did that ad where he got burnt and all that, and after that his life just turned relatively backwards till he died. But you know, like you see it so often, is how are they able to market and create this in certain people yet not others? You know, we've seen that few. And I suppose today with the communication systems we now have, right? The world's a very small place.
How old was Taylor Swift when she came to the top of the market? Maybe 15 years old. So she was kind of a child star, like you said. She's probably been in that world since she was a little girl, and you know, she seems to portray this wholesome, you know, American girl image rather than the slaggy things that the hip hop slaggy sort of stuff about being a horse. She don't seem to do that horse stuff most of the time. And so I think that's the popularity, really. I mean, apart from that, I
understand that, Nick. But I suppose getting back to Ramon's original discussion, how did a group of, well, you could call them marketing executives, come across this young person and realise that they could put her in a position where so many people were prepared, you know, basically, well, out here they said over 60% of the money that was used for her concerts was borrowed money. So people went into debt for it. You know, what makes it to us that, you know, it's like a drug. We've got to go, you know, I've got to go, I've got to buy all the paraphernalia.
My niece is like that. She's 19-year-old, and she says, "Oh, she did well. She did well with her exams, so she's saving all the money to go to watch Taylor Swift." I said, "Well," I said to her, "Well, you know, they're about £250 those concerts, aren't they? To be stood there with about 20,000 other people." She said, "Oh, yeah, well, whatever it takes." I said, you know, you really need your head feeling, because you could go on a really nice holiday for a week with that money. And what kind of value are you going to get out of that experience? No way. Well, they all want to do it.
Well, because you go to those sort of concerts. And the atmosphere that gets created, the energy, the frequencies, really do give a lot of people a buzz. And
Yeah.
you'd have to say that what we know the CIA and them worked on, especially since the 30s with, mine stuff and that. You got to wonder whether they're a lot further ahead with that than anybody really realises. Because
I'm sure they are. I'm sure
yeah,
they are.
because like she goes to that, and even though she's going to spend, about 250 quid, right? She will come away from that, and the next day she'll be telling you how great it was, right? The feeling and all that, how great it was. I don't know whether she'll still be saying it in 6 months, but yeah, it's like you go to some of those churches, right? You walk out of there feeling, because of the way they've done the music and everything with it. You come out of there feeling a utopia too. So yeah, and like you say, it all goes back to Hollywood, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of mind control going on, especially in the music industry. And of course, now everywhere's like in the hood. Everyone's a gangster now. If the young people, they've got the ride, which is a nice car, and then they've got the whore, which is the girlfriend, and they've all got guns. All doing whatever.
Yep.
And it's and that and so it provides some kind of image for sort of young American men. They think that's kind of normalized, a normalized kind of thing. It's destructive. It's it's anti-social.
Guys, carry on. I gotta go and help the patient. Okay, so go ahead and finish up the show. I'll upload it later. I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, Ramon.
Yeah.
Hey, Nick, I'll stop the recording for now.
Okay, mate.
All right, just give us a second. I'll stop the recording now.